Okay, so once you get to the Unity Asset Store, you just need to search Unity Asset Store on Google, and it's gonna be here, and you just click on it. So this is the interface for the Unity Asset Store, and as you can see, that there's a lot of things inside. Okay, we have things like assets, 2D, 3D assets, add-ons, audio, and AI stuff. Everything is inside here. There's even plugins for you to use, like, I don't know, ChatGPT in Unity or something. Okay, so there's a lot of stuff that you can get here, and a handful of them are free. So you can look around, but for today's workshop, we're going to focus on this particular asset pack that I have picked out because it contains everything that we need for a game that we're making. So you just need to search asset FTDGR and this thing should pop up. Yes. So just search asset FTDGR and you should see in the search result there that this is here. Let me just show you guys. So if you search this string here, you're going to scroll down and you see that this is here. Okay, it's the SFTDGR free pixel art platformer. And once you open it up, you should see that here it should be something like get or buy or something, It's free, so you just need to click on get and it's gonna get synced to a Unity ID. So if you're not logged in yet, it's gonna prompt you to log in, just log in. Okay, use the same Unity ID that you are using for your Unity Hub. Okay, don't use a different ID. So let's just take a few minutes to do this. So just this one? Yeah, this one. Okay, just grab this asset. Okay, so has anyone managed to get the asset pack? Yes? No? Okay, who hasn't managed to get the asset pack? Okay, come here, this one. Pick one. You just search asset FTDGR, it's gonna pop up. Make sure the name is correct. Can anyone not see the name actually? Let me just zoom in. Is this name search this out. Okay, who hasn't gotten the asset back? Who hasn't gotten the asset back? Okay, I'm going to assume everyone has gotten it. So once you've done so, this turns into open in Unity. Don't care about it. So now you go back to your Unity editor and you click on Window in the toolbar here. Click on Window, and then you go over to the Package Manager tab. So you click on it. So once you're inside of here, these are all the packages that are built into Unity. You don't have to care about it. And you want to click on these packages and then change it to My Asset. And this will fetch the assets that you have. And sometimes it bugs out, so you need to actually reopen it. Okay, usually it doesn't take this long to load. So open it up. If it keeps spinning, you just close it and reopen it. Okay. Yes, now you want to download this asset. And once you've downloaded this asset, this will be saved to a Unity hub. Okay, and yeah, I'm gonna give you guys a short moment to download it. Speaker and everything, man. There's no way around it. Okay. Has anyone managed to download it? Has anyone managed to download it? Wait, no. Okay, who hasn't downloaded it? One. Good, okay. Alright, so for everyone that has managed to download it, you just see this import button here. And all you have to do is simple, you just click on the import button. And then there's gonna be a huge pop-up, okay? There's gonna be like a huge pop-up here. You see all these things? Don't care about it, okay? Just click import. And this takes a while, because there's a lot of files inside of it. Blow up my computer. It's gonna blow my computer down. Okay, did everyone manage to import it? I don't know. Did anyone manage to import it? Did I import it? Download the asset. First you download it. Go to Windows, download. Yeah, download it. Then just I already imported it. I already downloaded it. You still have to import it. Yes. INDS. Just humble one. Qualifications. I asked like my friends to like hire a program. Or do you access? No. Don't import from that. Go to the package manager, import everything. Unless that's the same thing I want. Yeah, this is already downloaded in before. Unity credits. Goes all pyro on your left. Oh, the TV sort of tables. Then download from the import. Yeah, and then this is classic Unity. Should have done it with all. That's a standard. It's like the. I think Godot is actually better as well. This is faster. But if you want to do 3D, then do it. You don't. I mean, there's Unreal, but so like. Yes. Okay, there we go. Do you attach the player script to the player feed? No, you don't need to attach the player feed. So, is anyone still stuck at importing the asset? No? No? Okay, good. So, now we're going to, for real, start our workshop today. So let's get to here. And now you will see that there's an extra folder in your asset folder. It's called the SFTDGR. So inside of here, it has all the assets that we want. And let's get started with giving this ball an actual looking player. Okay, and how can we do that? You open SFTDGR, and that's the sprites folder. So as I mentioned in the first session, the sprite folder is, the folder that contains all the images. So as you can see, if you go to sprites characters hero, there's already all of these things for us. Okay, you can open one of these up. And these are already drawn. So you don't have to draw it yourself. And that's a good thing. Okay. So for this, all you need to do is to go to the player object. And then you click on the sprite in the sprite renderer. So it's this object here. Everyone see it properly. Do I need to... Is there a way to zoom in Unity? Okay, no, okay, anyways. Okay, so for this sprite here, you can see that it's a circle. I'm going to change it. Okay, and all you need to do is to drag one of these sprites here up there. And I'm just going to use the idle one because this looks the most normal. And once you drag it up to the sprite box there, you can see that our player actually has a sprite now. So our player is no longer a white ball, which is a good thing. Okay, it's a good thing. So let's see. But now the player is stuck because it doesn't look like, because our hitbox doesn't look like what the player is. So remember in the last session we attached a circle collider to the player. So the player's hitbox is always going to be this circle, which is here. And that is not, of course, not desirable because, well, humans don't have a circle hitbox. Okay, you don't get clipped through the ground like this. So we want to give this a more fitting hitbox. And to do that, you just need to remove the previous circle hitbox. So go to circle collider, and then you click on these three dots here, and click on remove component. Once you've done that, you're going to see that the green circle is gone. So the green circle is actually going to show you the contour of the collider. So, what?
What do we do after going to circle collider?
You remove it. Yeah, you remove the component. So once you're done with removing it, this no longer has a collider. So it's not going to stay on the ground anymore. It's just going to fall. So we need to add a new collider to it. And for this, we always want to make sure that the collider that we add is going to be almost fitting to the visual representation of the object. So in this example, this is a human, right? So we want to make sure that our collider fits it. And usually, we're just going to use box because it looks kind of squarish in this example. And you will notice that this green box shows up. And this green box is, as I mentioned, the green line shows you the contour of the colliders. And this doesn't really fit the player that nicely. You can see that there are some gaps between the player's arm and between the green contour. So this means that if there is a wall here, the player is just going to get stuck when there's supposedly some more space in between in the visual representation. And that's not a very good experience. So you want to shrink down the colliders. And to do that, you just need to scroll down to the collider component. And there's this edit collider with a button that has 3 square 2 lines. You just click on it. And you realize that now in the collider itself, at the middle of the green line, there is a green cube looking thing. So this is going to allow us to click on it and drag the collider down. So you want to make sure that it's close. So it gets to this position. Okay, I'm just gonna make it that way. And it's the same for the one at top. So make sure that the green line is almost overlapping with the player, such that the collider is going to be the same size. And there's not going to be things like air block or some sort of hitbox problem that gets pretty frustrating if you play games enough. Okay, so once you've done that, you can click away and press save. Make sure you save it on every step. Okay, any questions? Yes.
Why we imported it back? Why is
You need to import it explicitly. If not, the essay is just going to get downloaded. Yes, any questions?
I don't think so.
Okay, any questions? No? No? Okay, good. So if there's no questions, we can go back and see that the player now, let's move it a bit taller, move it a bit higher. The player now should stand on the ground almost perfectly. Okay, it's no longer clipping like a ball. Okay, it's not clipping through the ground anymore. So this is great. Okay, we want to make sure that it's always going to be in this state. If else, well, you don't want someone to clip through the ground. Okay, that's not nice. So once you've done that, the second thing is to try out the components for the player. So let's check if it actually moves correctly. Okay, it does. Okay, it still moves left and right correctly. It doesn't jump correctly. Okay, and the reason for that is because we haven't moved the feet position. The feet is not on the feet. So okay, we just need to move it down to where the feet is at. So now, as you move it back down and you try again, okay, it jumps correctly and it moves correctly, but it doesn't look that nice. Okay, we are not expecting people to moonwalk 24/7. So we will certainly have to fix the part where the guy is just moonwalking when we're moving towards the left. So now we are just going to go back to our script. okay, is more programming time. So in order to flip it over, there are multiple ways that you can do it, but for the sake of this workshop, and it's also going to be a bit more befitting for what we want to do in the subsequent workshops, okay, we're just going to do a very simple swap function. And for this, we're just going to make a new void method. It's called flip. And essentially when you flip, one of the ways that you can do it is to just change the local scale in the horizontal direction to the other direction. So if you guys have done image editing before, you kind of know that if you resize it to here and you move it there, it just flips over. And it's the same concept. So you just want to make it so that it flips over alongside its axis. So we're just going to do this. Transform.local scale is equals to new vector 3. And it's going to be equals to the x component, which is the horizontal component of the scale. And if you multiply this by -1, this is going to change it from facing the right to facing the left, like this. Okay, the scale of the x is going to be on the other direction. So we're just going to do that. It's just going to be a multiply by -1. Okay, maybe I should zoom in the code a bit. Okay, it's just gonna zoom in. It's just going to be multiplied by -1. And we don't want to change the scale in any other direction. Okay, so this is just going to be the code. So we assign the local scale to the x component times -1. Okay, are we good? Let me take a sip of water.
Negative.
Okay. Yes, is this okay? Alright, so let's test the code out to make sure that it's working. Of course, it's gonna compile. Are you okay? Okay, good. So now let's test the script out to make sure that it actually flips the thing correctly. Okay, we forgot to call it. But it's just going to keep flipping in a sense if we call it. So in order to make sure that it only flips when we want it to, we're going to store the direction that the person is facing. Okay, not the direction that is moving, but the direction that is facing. So we are going to store a Boolean value called isRight. Essentially, this is going to tell us if the player is facing the right direction, which is the right hand side direction to the person sitting in front of the screen. Okay. So if we are facing towards the right hand side direction, this Boolean value should be true. If it's facing the left hand side direction, here, the Boolean value should be false. Okay, so this essentially allows us to track whether or not which direction the player is facing. Okay, and because the visual representation here have it facing the right hand side direction. Okay, have it facing the right hand side direction by default. So when we start, we're just going to say is right, is true. So we know that it always starts when it's facing the right hand side direction. So when it's updating, we want to check if we want to flip. And what is the condition on that we want to flip the character? Can anyone guess?
If
If the left
it
button
is right, it's false.
If it's right, it's false.
If the left button is pushed.
If the left button is pushed. Okay, any other answers? Velocity of x. What condition though? Velocity of x is just a common. Equals 0, less than 0, okay?
If your direction is not the same as your current is right value.
Yes, so if your direction is not the same as the is right value, how do we check that? So let's look at us, okay? For example, right now I'm moving towards the right. I'm facing right. And if I'm moving towards the left, I will turn over and face left. This means that when we are moving towards the left, when we want to move towards the left, but we are currently facing the right hand side direction, we want to turn our entire body over. So it's the same thing when it comes to writing this. So all we need to do is to check if direction is going to the left side, which is smaller than 0, and we are currently facing the right hand side direction. Okay, then we want to flip. Okay, and now once we have flipped over, okay, I was moving to the right. Once I have flipped over, I'm currently not facing towards the right hand side anymore, right? So since I'm not facing towards the right hand side anymore, we also need to say that is right is equals to false. Okay, so let's get back and let's see if this code works. Is this okay? Okay, so let's get back and see if this code works. So I'm facing towards the right, we move right, that's okay. Now we're facing towards the left, we flip over. Which means this code is working, but now I'm not going to be able to flip in the other direction. So we just need to employ a very similar check to this. And we're just going to do when our direction is greater than 0, which is when we want to move towards the right hand side direction, but we are not facing the right hand side direction. And all we want to do is to call flip, and is right equals true. It's a
Or the fine with you.
Right, so is this okay? Is everyone still following me? Yes, okay, good. Okay, good. So now let's get back and see if this actually works. And we're just going to... And as you guys can see that this is working, it's not too bad. Which is always a good idea, which is always a good thing, not a good idea. So this means that our code is working. And we kind of solved a big problem here because now we're not moonwalking all the time, which is nice. But at this point, you're just gonna look at this and be like, oh, I have a custom asset for my player, but the platform is still a white cube. Is there some ways that I can kind of make it look better? So let's get back to our asset pack. And you can see that in the sprites environment, we have something called tiles. And here, it has all the individual components for everything that we need, actually. So this is like the grass part of a map. Okay, there's the bricks part of the map. There's the winter part of the map, you see. So there's a lot of these assets already laid down for us in the asset pack, which is a good thing because then you can make all sorts of different levels that you want. But how do we actually use it? As far as we actually currently do, we have only been kind of like dragging and dropping inside of the editor. And let's try that. If we drag and drop here, it's just this one size here. Which, well, I mean, it's not that bad, but imagine you are making a very large map. Then you have to drag and drop in like maybe hundreds or thousands of these blocks. And that's going to take you a lot of time. And it's not a good thing. You don't want to spend hundreds of hours designing a single level. Okay, so there's a better way to do this. Let me just remove this. Okay, there's a better way to do this. And this is what Unity calls a tile map. We're going to get into this later. But essentially a tile map is kind of like a color palette that you can use in any kind of painting software. Okay, Microsoft Paint, Photoshop, okay, Krita, anything. So it's just a color palette. But instead of using colors to represent each pixel, we're going to use a single sprite PNG like a paintbrush and just put it over the canvas. So Unity has this built-in function called tile map that allows us to do that very easily. And it allows us to design 2D levels much faster and much more efficiently. So let's get into the actual implementation. So in order to do that, the first step is you need to first create a palette. Because without a color palette, it doesn't know like what color you want to fill it in. And it's the same thing here. It doesn't know what sprites it needs to fill in the canvas with. So you want to go to Windows, Window, and then go to 2D and select Tile Palette, which is here. And if you can see here that some of these are already there because the asset pack creator has made these for us. But in the case that in the future that they have not, So I'm gonna go through how you can create a new tile palette. In order to do that, first of all, make sure that you go back to your main asset folder and create a new folder called sprites. SPRITES. Once you have created that sprites palette, right, you want to open this folder up, and then in this palette, click on this blocks here and click on create new palette. And this is going to jump a lot of stuff out and it's going to prompt you to put in a name. For now, we're just gonna put this ground, okay? And the rest of this stuff, you can just keep it as is and you can click on create. So a dialog box jumps out asking you where it should be placed, and you just want to put it into the sprites folder that you just created. Create new palette, give it a name, and then just click create.
What do you do from the whole?
Create new palette.
Thank you.
It's in the drop down menu.
Which are pretty sprites. What do I do?
What amazing name.
Okay, now you need to go to window,
2D. And then tile palette. And then create new palette. It's in the drop down menu here. Here. Yeah. Create new palette. Give it a name and put it in the sprites folder. It's in the drop down.
So that out this. Yeah. Create new palette, name it, and then the sprites.
I wonder if I can put the scale out. Give it me a second. Okay, I don't usually do it this big, but hopefully this helps you guys see it a bit better. Okay, does this look better? It's much bigger at this point. Okay. Okay, good. Alright, so yeah. So has everyone created the tile palette? Yes? Okay, good. So now you want to add the tiles to the palette. So you go back to the tiles folder from the asset pack that we have. And then all you need to do is to click on this grass ground. And then drag the entire thing into this box here. This box should say like something like drag and drop sprite. And this dialog box pops up. And all you need to do is to navigate back to your sprites folder, select it, and then just put it there. So if you go back to the sprites folder, you're gonna see that all of these single assets are currently in here. And that's good, okay, because now we actually have a way to use a tile palette. What? What? You just drag and drop the tile into the palette.
Where we at?
Yeah, we just drag it in.
Wait, do we just drag it?
Yeah, just drag it.
Where do I drag it?
You open up the tile palette. It's the window.
The window?
Yeah, it's this is file window. And then 2D and tile palettes.
Ah, I see.
And then you just go back to the tiles. Here? Yeah. So now if you open back up the tile palette window.
This one?
Yes. And then you can just drag and drop one of these tiles entirely. No, just drag the entire thing into the palette window. Here is off, of course.
Are they heavy? So that can
Good.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. The Davey was just like, is that how you pronounce his name? I was like, I'm pretty sure that's how you pronounce his name. Probably not.
Wait, where did you go?
I don't know, my laptop is queuing up.
Dying. Once it's not like that. I can show it to you. It's probably a fix. You have too many processors.
Here. Oh, you don't play?
One? Yes. So,
You broke a massive shit in this bathroom or something. Whatever it was.
yeah, let's just all
See. So much water. Well, I mean, yeah, it's water. For me, it's like, oh my god, I need water in 5 minutes.
Man.
You didn't crash my laptop.
I tried tracking it if there was things.
After like setting it up, it's all part of it. What do you do now?
Hold on. I have to reload Unity. Unless Unity loads itself. Unity?
You need the top palette first.
So many games.
And put it into the main sprite folder. Okay, are we good with this?
No, yes. After this, do you have to import like
No, not really. We're gonna stick to one first. Okay. Good. Good. No pressure. Okay, good. So now that this is in here, we still can't use it yet because we need to have a tile here. Since we are replacing this platform, let's just remove it. Okay, and here you're just going to right click and go to 2D object and go to tile map and select rectangular and give this tile map a name. Just call it ground. So at this point, if you click on this, you're going to see that there's a grid. Okay, there's a lot of cubes in here. So each one of these cubes signifies a unit where a sprite can be placed in. So in order to do that, you just go to your tile palette and then select, just click on one of these tiles, and then once you hover over the grid, you can now paint it on. Okay, you can paint it on however you want. Okay, if you like to use a different sprite, you can. Right, but it depends on how you want to design your level. Now you can just paint it on like this. So, of course, this is going to make it much easier than dragging and dropping 50 objects and put it in. The setting up is a bit troublesome, but once you get used to it, it's going to take you less than a minute. So, now that we have this, the problem is, if you click play now, you'll realize that because the ground doesn't have a hitbox, so it just falls through. So we still need to give this a hitbox, but if you look at it this way, this is not any regular shape that we know. Okay, it's not really, the entire thing is not really a cube. It's not a square, it's not a circle, right? And if you try to attach these onto this, if you try to attach these these shape colliders onto this, you can see that this is actually kind of clipping a bit. And it's not matching the visual representation. So I can walk on thin air. And that's not really great. So how we could try to fix this is to use a completely different type of collider that Unity provided us with. And that's called the tile map collider. So if you search tile map, you'll see this as the second option. It's called tile map collider 2D. And if you click on enter, now this tile map, so each one of these squares here, right, is going to have its own collider now. So the tile map collider will essentially make each one of these have their individual collider. Their individual cube colliders, okay? So now if you play the game again, you'll realize that we no longer clip through and it works perfectly, but sometimes we just kind of get stuck on some rock or something that we can't move over. And this is not my PC lagging, as you can see. And the reason for that is because there are some small holes in between. There are some small gaps in between these two colliders in the same tile map. So these are very, very small, so you can't see them in the editor. But it obviously does not create a smooth looking, it's not going to create a smooth ground. So we want to have a way for them to kind of be seen as one single smooth surface, so that we don't get stuck in some random place. And to do that, we need to use the composite collider. So if you search composite, this is going to pop up as Composite Collider 2D. And what's different is that the Tilemap Collider creates a queue for every single tile that is placed in the tilemap. And the Composite Collider is going to combine all the colliders attached to this object into one single massive collider. So essentially this is going to make it look like a smooth surface to the game. Okay, and in order to use it properly, all you need to do is to go to the Tilemap Collider and click on this Use by Composite. Just tick it. And now as you look at this, this is now one single huge object that has a proper collider to it. Okay, but now that happened. Okay, now that happened. That's because as we attach the collider, this thing became a dynamic rigid body because we haven't attached the rigid bodies to it. So as we mentioned it last session, we need to make sure that the ground is static and it also has the ground layer on it. So as we get back to the game now, you're going to see that this thing should work properly and we no longer get stuck in some weird place. Okay? And we can jump and we can do whatever that we want. Okay, at this point is anyone not following? Yes.
Because I got stuck. Do you have any?
See all the grids, right? Now as we go back to the tile method,
So the
here, yeah. And now you can select one of these tiles.
I see. Thank you.
But it is kind of normal in a sense that you need to tell the game that that's the ground. How can we do that? Yes.
I have a few questions. One, I think yes, no, need anything, and okay.
Okay, so you're stuck in here. Okay. Get back out. Oh, it's who wants that? Yes.
So which, how do I get the composite Okay, so you have the component pattern, and usually you add the composite driver, like how you would add some other driver.
Okay, any other questions? Do you have any other questions? No? No? Okay, no. So if you don't have any other questions, let's get back here. So at this point, we kind of have like a way for you to design the level, right? But unfortunately, right now we are still constrained by the size of the camera. Because as the player moves around, the camera kind of stays in the same. Right. And this means that we can't really move out of this box. Correct. So how do we normally play? How do games normally kind of play out?
Keep the camera with the character.
Keep the camera with the character, yes. So there are a few ways you can do that. But the easiest way, okay, that doesn't require you to install any kind of external library or do any kind of programming, is to just make the camera a child object of the player. So remember, as we do the player feed last week, I mentioned that if an object is a child object of another object, as the parent object moves, the child object follows it. So if we make the camera as a child object of the player, as the player moves, the camera follows the player. It follows it around. Okay. So now let's save the scene. As we click on play now, you're going to see that the camera follows the player around. And as we jump, it also follows us around. Good. So now we have some level of camera movement. So you can now make levels that are greater than this boundary. And since the camera moves around with the player, we will have a way of knowing where the player currently is. And it doesn't matter how big you design the level to be. Alright, so at this point, the rest of this is just going to be up to your imagination. Okay, how you want to design the level, how you want to make it kind of play out. Okay, any kind of interesting shapes that you want to draw with all these asset packs available, you can just do it. But I'm not gonna touch into designing a level. That's not my forte. I just know how to program, and this is not one of it. So I'm going to leave level design to you guys. Okay, maybe during this weekend, we have a long weekend coming up ahead. Hopefully you don't have any assignments and you have some free time, so you can start designing your level. But we're not gonna go into too much details into it. You can just use the same tile map and just draw something out, okay? So at this point, you're probably asking yourself, how do we finish the game? If you've played Super Mario before, okay, you kind of finish the game as you reach the castle and you pull the flag down, right? But here we don't have a way of doing that. Okay, here it's just like we just keep walk around in the same scene. There is no place that we know that we can kind of finish, and there's no way for us to finish, right? So for this, we are actually gonna go into some level of player interaction, which is the next part of this workshop after level design. So player interaction allows the player to actually interact with game objects inside of the game scene. So for example, if you've played against Super Mario's before, you see a mushroom, you eat it, you get bigger, right? And then you see a flower, you eat it, and you kind of have the ability to shoot fireballs. Okay, and you know, you get to the flag, you can also jump on some cubes from below and then they pop coins up, all those kinds of things. Having these kinds of interaction allows the player to have something more to do inside the game. And it makes it more fun in some sense. So, in order to do that, let's first find out what we can use as like a place for us to end the stage. So I'm not gonna go too crazy with this. Okay, I'm just gonna use this tower. Okay, this is huge. This is huge, okay. Okay, I'm just gonna put this onto the map. So as the player gets into this tower, they're going to finish the game. Okay, at least that's the concept. So in order to do that, first of all, we need to have a way for it to actually go into the tower. And the tower knows that the player is currently near it or just inside of its hitbox. So to do that, again, okay, let me close the tile palette. We are just gonna go to the tower and then click on add component and add a box collider 2D. So as you can see now, this this tower actually has a collider. Okay, let me move around. And now I get stuck here because the tower is blocking me from going forward. Okay, now that's a good thing. But we probably want to be able to go into the tower in some sense. And in order to do that, we are just going to change the box collider to a trigger collider. If you click on is trigger in the collider property, this turns it in from a solid collider to a trigger collider. And essentially what a trigger collider does is it allows things to pass through it. As you can see now, the player can go behind the tower. It can go inside the hitbox and it's not gonna stop it. Okay, so a trigger collider allows players to move through it, and a collision or a solid collider does not allow another object to pass through it. So that's really just the difference, and some other differences in more technical aspects, but we're not gonna get into that now. So once we have a way to actually, you know, let the object knows that the player is there, or let the player knows that we are close to the object, we need to have a way for us to end the game, right? And to do that, okay, we're going to have to go into more code. Okay, we're gonna have to type more code, and for this code, we are going to utilize another Unity system called tags. So tags is a system that allows us to separate game objects from one another, very similar to how layers work that we've gone through last week. So it allows you to filter a game object for a required operation, and each game object can only have one tag. So for example, if this table has a tag of table, I'm the player, I go through it, I touch it, Unity is going to tell me as the player that I touched the table. I touch an object with a tag called table. Okay, so we want to be able to make use of this information. So what if we just do like, if I touch the table, okay, a pen pops up or something pops up. Okay, so we are going to implement this logic into the game. So let's do that. And in order to do that, first of all, let's get back here and go to scripts. We're going to create a new C# script called player interaction. And open this up in the code editor. This looks huge. So now we have a player interaction here. So none of these are actually useful. Okay, let's be honest. So we're just gonna remove all of them. Okay. And we're gonna go back to our editor. So we need a way for us to label that this is going to be the finish line. So we're just gonna go to tag here. And as you can see, Unity already predefined some for us. So we're just going to go to tower, tag, and we're going to select finish. So now as we go into the tower object, we know that this object has a tag called finish. And we are going to be able to make use of this information for something. So to do that, we are going to get back to the play interaction script and do a void on trigger enter 2D. So this is a built-in method in Unity. And essentially, this is going to get called. Okay, this is going to get called when a player or when this script, when the object that this script is attached to moves into a trigger collider. So it's on trigger enter 2D. All right, so once we have this here, you can see that it comes with this collider 2D collision, argument. So this is going to store the collider data for the object that we moved into. So for example, if we moved into a table, it's going to tell me that this is the collider of the table object. If I moved into a pen, it's going to tell me this is the collider for the pen object. So we're just going to make use of this information and say that if collision, so if the collider of the object that I moved into and the game object of that collider, okay, has a tag called finish, okay, we're gonna do something. For now, we're just going to say finish line. So this is going to print out a statement in the console called finish line. So essentially, as the player moves into a trigger collider, it's going to check if the object that it moved into has the tag called finish. If the object has a tag called finish, it's just going to write this out in the console. So let's make sure that this works. We're gonna go back to Unity and attach the player interaction script onto the player. Okay. And we're just going to play. And see, as I move into here, the console pops up finish line. I move out, I move in, finish line. And you can do this for multiple times, and as long as you completely get out of it and you get back in, it's going to detect it. Cool. So this means that now we have a way of knowing that the player actually moved into the finish line. The player moved into the finish line. But what can we do about that? So what happens when the player moves into a finish line is we probably want to load a screen saying that, oh, you finished the game. Okay, congratulations, or thank you for playing, or something like that. So in Unity, every single level, including your loading screen, okay, your loading screen, your main menu, your credits scene, okay, these kinds of things, they are stored in the game scene. So in order for you to display something else that is not your current level, you need to create a new scene object. So to do that, all you need to do is to get back to the scenes folder inside your main folder. Okay, it's here. This should be available for everyone because it's gonna get created the first time you initialize a Unity project. And you're gonna right click create and select a scene. And for this one, we're just going to call this finish. So essentially what we are going to do is that as the player gets into this tower, it's going to load the finished scene, and there's gonna be something up there that says, you know, congratulations on completing the game. The player. It's called the player interaction. Yes, are we good?
Wait, so do we drag the player interaction script to the player?
Yes, correct. Yes. we good? Are we good? Is anyone still following
Can I see the code?
the code? Okay. Are we still good? Okay, so at this point, we are going to have to find a way to switch to the new scene. So let's get back to this here. And since we created this new finished scene, right? Make sure that you save your current scene before you change to a new scene. So as you double click on it, this is going to open up the new scene for us. Okay, and this new scene has completely nothing inside of it because it's again a blank scene. So whatever you put inside is a completely different thing as what you put inside the first scene. So for this one, we're not going to do a lot of stuff, but we kind of need to have a way to differentiate between the original scene and this scene that's supposed to be the finished scene. So for now, we're just going to change the color. If we go to main camera here, as you click on background, okay, select main camera, you go to background, you can just give it a different color. Like this. Okay, and the entire scene will change color. Because the color of the scene is actually decided by the camera. It's not nothing else. So we're just going to give this a green screen so that we know that it's a different scene. It's the finishing scene. Okay, as to how you want to design this, we are going to go to UI. Hopefully we still have time at the end of this session. Okay, good. Okay, it's fine if you don't want to change the background color. It's just a way for me to differentiate it so I can show it for you guys. So once you're done with that, we can go back to our sample scene. Just double click on it. And at this point, we need to have a way to change the scene. Okay, how are we supposed to tell Unity that we want to swap from this main scene into our finished scene? And the way to do that is to use Unity's built-in function called Scene Manager. So this is a class in Unity that handles all the scene transition in the game. And all scenes that you want to load have to be specified in the build settings. Okay, I'm going to get to the build settings later, but know that there is this class. So when you're going to switch between game scenes, right, you're going to have to use the Scene Manager class. And to do that, first of all, you need to import it. It's the Unity engine.scene management. So you need to use the namespace of it. So just go back and go to your play interaction script and then add this using Unity engine.scene management, semicolon, at the top of the script. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna remove this statement and we are going to say scene manager here. Okay, we're gonna call a scene manager and we're just gonna load scene. And this load scene is going to take in a few arguments and we're just gonna make it take in a scene name called finish. Okay, so remember that we named this scene finish, right? Whatever you put the name of this scene to be, just put it inside of here. Okay? So once we've done this, the next thing to do is to go to File, Build Settings. So for every single scene that you want to be able to get loaded into the game, it has to be specified in this build settings. And all you need to do is to just drag and drop it inside. That's it. Okay, and then this is going to be inside of here. Once you've done that, you can just close the window. It doesn't matter for now. And make sure you save. And as we click on play right now, you're going to see as I walk into the tower, I get transitioned to the new scene, which is completely green as I put it just now. Alright. Good. Good. So as you exit, it's going to get back here. So, well, the code is working and we are moving to the finished scene. But it still feels like we're lacking something. It still feels like we're lacking something. So, okay, I'm just going to give you guys a small time so that you can catch up, please.
Can I see the code again?
See the code, okay, sure. Yes. Yeah, we're gonna get to that next week. Okay, so are we good? Are we good? Can we move on? Can we move on? Yes.
Why is my collider too? Why is it on my game?
You have the Visual Studio for the extension.
I barely understood that.
You launch your
Yeah, I clicked it off.
It might not look like it's like
I'm gonna get to this afterwards. I'm not very sure what's causing it. It's probably something with the reflection.
Okay, so are we good? Are we good? Are we good? Yes.
You guess that.
Okay. At this point, we are kind of finishing up, but we still need to add a bit more elements to this. And can anyone guess what it's supposed to be? Like, look in platformer games that you have played before. There's one aspect that always is there to annoy the player.
Enemies.
Enemies. That's a bit too complicated. No. Not like this. Okay.
Obstacles?
Obstacles. Okay. Yes. So you want to have a way to annoy the players, right? So they have to jump over some things. If not, the jump key is just gonna be there for decoration. So let's add some obstacles. And to do that, we can just go into just go into our almighty asset pack. And where was it again? Right, so if you go into tiles, you're going to see the obstacles here. Okay. So we're not going to use all of it. I think we're not going to use all of it. So I'm just going to use obstacle 3. Okay, and all that you gotta have to do is to just drag and drop this into the scene. And let's just give it a name, we call it Spike. Okay, so after we've done that, we want to make sure that the spike can actually kill the player. In a sense that it's gonna make the player restart the current level's progress. Okay, so for this, we are just going to, first of all, make sure that it can interact with the player again. So we're going to now use something called a polygon collider. Okay, so as you can see here, we actually have box, we have circle, but we don't actually have something that's triangular shaped. Right, and the spike is triangular shaped. So we need to have something that is visual, that looks like its visual representation. So we're just gonna add the polygon collider 2D, and you can see that this has some whack shape to it, but it's fine. So again, you can just edit it just by clicking on edit polygon, edit collider. But this one is a bit different because this is polygon. You can add more shapes. You can add more kind of like edges and vertices to it. So when you are doing this, make sure that you're always on the edge when you're moving this around. Okay, so we're just going to make sure that it follows the visual representation of the sprite such that it's okay. And we're just going to move this up, and we're just going to move this up. So it's okay if these parts are not 100% fully to the shape, since it's kind of triangular looking in the first place. So once you've got it into this particular shape, right, I would say that it is good enough. Okay, I would say that it is good enough. And all you need to do is to just make sure you click away. Make sure you click away. And now as you look back at it, the collider has this shape. And again, we are going to use a trigger collider because that is what we have built here. I rather not go into a second interaction event. So we're just going to move this spike around. Okay, I'm just going to put this here. I think this is good enough place. So again, in order for us to know that this is actually an obstacle that is going to kill us, we're going to add a tag for it. So for this one, we're going to add a new tag. So for tag, we're just going to click on add tag. And here, we're just going to add something called obstacle. And click on save. And now, as you go back to spike, you can add the obstacle tag onto it. So usually in a platformer game, as you step on the obstacle, you want to just kill the player and let it restart from the beginning, right? In some, of course, except for some certain situations. So to do that, we're just going to add a new chain to this. So else if the collision.gameObject.tag is equals to obstacle. If this is equal to obstacle, okay, all you want to do is to just reload the same scene, because every time the scene starts, it's just going to be the same thing here. The player is here, the spike is here, okay? So all we need to do is to just reload the same scene. And to do that, we're just going to do scene manager.load scene, and we're going to call scene manager again, and we're going to do get scene by name. And this is going to give us a scene, actually. Get active scene, yes. Get active scene dot build index. So this is going to give us the ID of the current active scene, which is the scene that we are seeing in the game. Okay, it's the scene that we're seeing in the game. And by doing this, we are just going to reload the scene as the player steps on the spike, and it's just going to restart everything from the beginning. Okay. Is that good? Are we okay? Are we okay? Are we okay? Yes, yes. Okay, so now let's do a quick demo. So make sure that this already has the tag obstacle and it's a trigger collider, and we're just gonna play. Now, I'm just gonna move around. Everything is fine. I step on the spike. Now I get back to the original position. I step on the spike. I get respawn. Over and over again. I just keep dying, right? But I can jump over it, and then this gives me to the next level. Which means the entire logic works, and it's always a good thing to see that your code is working. So at this point, the player can die, the player can progress. We're probably still lacking some stuff. We want something that gives the player some sort of satisfaction. For example, they can probably collect some kind of coin or something, right? So if the player can collect the type of coin that increases their score, then it gives them some level of satisfaction when they complete a stage with a high score. This means that they have collected a lot of those coins in there. Unfortunately, in this almighty asset pack, there's no coins, but we have something else that can be used. So here, let me just reposition the player a bit. I'm just gonna put this here. Okay, so what we're going to do is to get back to the asset pack. And as we go to environment decorations, you guys see this mushroom? We're gonna use this mushroom as our reward. So as the player eats the mushroom, it's going to give the player more score. And this gives them some sort of satisfaction. And then it gives them some motivation to actually go and get mushrooms. Okay. It's part of game design. If you play Super Mario, you know there are stars kind of thing that you can pick up. Right, so it's kind of like the same concept. So we're just gonna again drag and drop this mushroom inside of the scene. And we're not gonna give it a lot of name. We're just gonna call it mushroom. Okay, good. So the same thing is going to happen. We are going to make it such that we have a way to interact with this mushroom. And the way to do that is to obviously add new tags. So for this, we're just going to add a new tag and we're going to call this reward tag, so that it sounds a bit more generic. So let's get back here and put the reward tag onto the mushroom. And make sure that the mushroom has a collider, and the collider is a trigger collider. So once you've done all of these things, right, the mushroom will be interactable. But we still have to write out the logic as to what interaction that we can do on it. So we're just going to add a new chain to this. So as the game object tag is equals to reward, we want to add score, right? But we don't know what the score is, which is why we also need to have a field that initialize the score. So we're just gonna store this as an integer because we probably just want whole numbers, like the score is 0, 1, 2, or 100, 200. And so for that, we're also going to have to bring back start. And here we're just going to initialize score equals 0. So as we step on reward, okay, we want to add more score. So we're just going to add it by 1 for now. And we want to have a way to say what is the current score. So for this, we're just going to debug the log score and then plus score like this. So this is going to print out the line score, colon, spacebar, and the current score that we have. Okay, are we good? Okay, are we good? Good. Okay, so once we're able to do that, let's just get back here. And we're just going to look at the console. So as we step on the mushroom, we get score equals 1. You can keep stepping on it. 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, that works, but I can just keep stepping on it to get more scores. Yes. Okay, sure. So we probably don't want that to happen because then it makes no sense for us to have a object reward in the first place if the player is just gonna keep stepping on it and then it's just gonna keep that more stores, right? So we want to give this a limit. And usually in games, once you step on the coin is just gonna disappear, right? So we're gonna do the same thing. And all we need to do is to just destroy the coin. Right? We just need to remove the coin from its existence. So after the player steps on the mushroom, we're just going to make the mushroom go poof. Okay, it never existed anymore. And to do that, all you need to do is to add this line here. It's not really a good practice, but this works. So yeah, so I'm gonna destroy the collision.gameObject, not the gameObject. The gameObject is the player. So destroy collision.gameObject is going to make it such that we will destroy the mushroom, which is the gameObject with the tag reward. Okay? So as we get back to the game, you're going to see that as we step on the mushroom gets destroyed and we get 1 point. And that's good. And as we die, the mushroom gets back. Okay, and we just keep getting 1 point over and over again. Alright, good. So now that we have that figured out, right now we kind of only have a way of knowing what the score is through this console statement. But the player wouldn't be able to see the console statement when they are playing the game. We can because we're in the editor and we kind of have an all-purpose view, but the player will not be able to do that. Okay, and for that, we're going to go into UI. Alright? So we're going to go into UI, and we're just going to add a text UI for this, such that it shows what is the current score. So to do that, right click here, and we're just gonna go to UI and add the text mesh pro. You're gonna see that this importer jumps in, just click on import, doesn't matter. Okay, it's gonna take some time, and once it's done, you can close the window. And now you're going to have a text. It's here, right? Can I scale this smaller? Okay, so you can see that we have a text here. So currently it says new text. You can change that. So you can click on this text that is under the canvas object, and you can just change this into something else. Okay. We're just gonna give this I don't know, we're just gonna call this score equals 0. Okay, score : 0. And to make it such that it looks a bit better instead of floating in the middle, we're just gonna change the text alignment to right, and then we're just gonna go to the rect transform here, and then click on this thing and select this. Okay, once you've selected this, right, the top right corner one, you just change the entire thing to 0, and you see that now it's here. But we probably want it in a much better place, so we're just gonna move this around and make sure that it kind of looks okay. Alright, so now we have the canvas in place, and it shows us the current score. But there is no way for this text to know like what is the current score unless we tell it what the current score is. And to do that, here we're just going to add a serialized field, a private TMP text. Okay, you need to import the using TM Pro statement here, and we're just gonna call this score text. And so once we get the score, we're just gonna do score text dot text equals this thing. So we have a TMP text called score text here. Make sure you're using TM Pro here. Make sure you type in this statement here. And make sure you have this, and then you're going to make sure that the score text dot text gets assigned to score plus score. Okay? Go back up. Okay, it's TMP text and it's using TM Pro. Okay, we're running out of time, so let's keep this quick. Okay, are we good? Are we good? Okay, are we good? Okay, okay. Okay, so now we have a way of showing the score. Let's just get back and let's try out our code. Now our score is 0, and as we pick up the mushroom, oh, it's not set to an instance of object. So make sure that every time you do this, you add a serialized field, you need to assign this. So all you need to do is to just drag and drop the text object onto score text. Okay, or you can just select score text from here, which is just this text here. So now that you have assigned this, as you step on it, you see my score goes up to 1. Okay, let's die. And let's do it again. You can see that my score goes from 0 to 1. This means that it's working. Alright? So now we have a UI of telling the player how much score that they have attained, which is good. Alright? It's always good to have these kinds of things. So, but right now, as you can see that, well, the mushroom has quite a bunch of property. We need to put a tag to it, we need to put like a collider onto it, and we need to put it around. There's a lot of things that you need to attach. So there's a very easy way of doing this in Unity, and that's called a prefab. So a prefab allows us to reuse a game object with the same properties, except for the transform property. So essentially, we can create a prefab of a game object, and as we drag the prefab into the scene, it's going to have all the properties already attached to it. So it facilitates the game development process because you don't have to attach all the scripts, all the properties onto the object anymore. And any game objects can be made into a prefab, and any changes onto the prefab object is going to affect all the instances of the same object in the same scene. In all scenes, actually. Okay, less talking, so let's just do it. So in order to do this properly, first of all, we're just gonna go to our main asset folder here, and we're gonna create a new folder called prefab. So you open up the prefab folder, and let's see, what are some of the game objects that we want to reuse all the time? Any ideas? What are some game objects that you want to reuse all the time? Like when you're creating a level, it's just gonna get used over and over again.
The ground.
The ground, not really, because you're using a tile map for that already.
The obstacles,
Yeah, the obstacles, yes. So, and what else?
mushroom.
Yeah, the mushroom. So, the rewards and the obstacles are usually the main things that is going to get used all over in a level design in any kind of game. So, we are going to have to make them a prefab so that we can just reuse it. We don't have to attach all the colliders, all the tags onto it again. And all you need to do is just go to this hierarchy. You select the mushroom object, you drag it down to the folder. And now this becomes a prefab. As you can see now, it's a prefab file. Okay, we're gonna do the same for the spike. And as now we have prefabs, all of these prefab objects, as you drag them back to the scene, they're going to have the exact same things attached onto it. Like the mushroom, it has the mushroom tag, and it also has the box collider that is currently a trigger. Okay, if we drag the spike back into the scene, the spike will have the obstacle tag, and it will have an is trigger polygon collider as well. So if we change anything in this main prefab file, right, it's going to change it for all of its existence. So if we change this tag from obstacle to untag, right, as we get back to the game scene, you can see all of these are now untagged. So this is always a good thing because it allows you to change a property for any game object that's highly reusable. So now that we've done that, it allows you to reuse all the mushroom and the spikes. And as you can see, my score now goes to 3, and if I die here, yeah, so that's good. And you can just make everything that you think is gonna get reused into a prefab. There's really no harm in doing so. So say the player is gonna get reused, so you're gonna drag the player in. As you make a new level, you are going to need to put the player into the new level. And the tower, which is the finish line, is also gonna get reused. So let's just drag this in. Okay, let's delete the prefab. Okay, so you're gonna drag the player in, and then you are going to drag the tower in. Okay, good. So now you can create multiple towers, multiple players, but usually you're not gonna do them in the same level. Alright, so that just about covers all the things that we're gonna be doing this session. There's actually quite a lot to cover, but we're going a bit slow, but that's fine. So we have a long weekend ahead of us. If you feel like doing some game dev, it's always good to start with designing your own level. So you can just add obstacles as you want to go. You can use different sprites. Okay, you can use different tile maps. Just do whatever you want. You are now just restrained by your own creativity. Okay, make your own level or multiple if you like to. And yeah, that's always a way to do it. And that's it for today. Thank you for coming. And if you have any questions, you can come and ask. I'm going to stop the recording here.